What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another video. And while this isn't technically related to Modern Pioneer, during the announcement that we got yesterday for the lack of ban restricted announcement, we had this neat little article about product changing for Magic the Gathering stuff. And normally, I don't open any sealed product. I don't do anything really of the sort on my channel. At least it's been like years. I think like the only box opening I've ever had on my channel was like Aether Revolt, and that was like when Aether Revolt was like new. To kind of put into perspective, like what I do, I generally try to avoid it. I mean, it is a lot of fun, and it I think is really cool, and eventually want to possibly bring it in like some smaller scale, to my channel. But by and large, like I mean, even now, like in my personal life, I don't buy boosters or anything like that. Um, but we have some changes coming to booster packs going forward, and they do kind of have an impact on Modern and Pioneer as a whole, assuming that this change is getting rolled out to, some of the other things. I really didn't read the article. We'll kind of glance at the article, but I wanted to go over this graphic here before we kind of get into it as well. Of course, if you are new to the channel and you are not already subscribed, please consider subscribing, ring the notification bell. We post a lot of Modern and Pioneer content, things kind of related to the format, essay type videos, just fun things, and of course more to come in the future, kind of as we get a little bit better setup for it. But for right now, talking a lot of Modern, talking a lot of Pioneer, some of those popular formats in Magic. So, why wouldn't you want it? Have another person talking to you about it. Hit subscribe, ring notification bell, join the Discord server, all that fun stuff. So play boosters. Before, we've had set boosters and we've had draft boosters. Don't ask me what the difference is. I don't know. I think set boosters were supposed to be like a little bit better for like the collector, like obviously there was the collector boosters that were like, $30, $40, and you got special borders and foiling and whatever. But I think for like just set like normal-ish cards that were going to come out of booster packs, you had set boosters and you had draft boosters. Draft boosters were meant for drafting. If you go to your LGS, whatnot, that's what they were meant for. On top of that, you had like the set booster, which was probably going to have, like, I would imagine, either better odds or more chances to get, rarer cards in the set. So, play boosters are draftable, and they're up to 4 rares total. Now, I don't know about you, but in playing limited and with the amount of limited that I've played, obviously rares are just absolutely nuts. Like, obviously there's some really good uncommons, and sometimes there's some really good commons as well that, if you just open these, you're in a very good position to, win your draft and everything. But obviously with rares, mythic rares and stuff, you are going to absolutely go crazy. And I'm going to assume that these non-foil, why would these even exist? So here we have 1 to 6 commons, where I think traditionally it's like 9 or 10, because then you end up getting, your well, now there's 7. There's technically 7 commons, potentially. A card from like the list, which the list, I have no idea how people find out what the list is, but apparently there's some very good cards on it. Would definitely be really interesting to open up a card from the list. It's like a Wrenn and 6 is like on the list or whatever. Opening like a Wrenn and 6 after looking at a bunch of commons and stuff, pretty interesting. But it's in between the commons and uncommons. You still have 3 uncommons like normal. You have a rare mythic, normal stuff, basic land, sure. Now they have 2 extra slots added to boosters with a non-foil wild card and a foiled wild card, with an add token helper art card at the end. So essentially what this is saying is like the potential for up to 4 rares is talking about the list card, which could be just an older card that was like a common or uncommon in like its original set. I believe some of like the list cards were like Wrenn and 6 and stuff like that. So definitely to kind of give you an idea of like what you could be looking at in the list / common slot. Going farther, you have like a rare mythic that you would just normally get in a booster pack, and then you have your non-foiled wild card, which looks like it is supposed to be a rare. I'm assuming that if it is a non-foil wild card and a foil wild card, that you just kind of get like 2 random cards. It could be like a common uncommon, could be rare mythic, whatnot. But it looks like every booster pack, or sorry, play booster is going to come with at least one card from the list or another common. So depending on like the rate, I guess, that list cards get pulled, you could see at least some, more likely to see some of like the more playable cards from the list, kind of making it out into the wild, if they're going to kind of push. I'm not sure like what the rate was for list cards to begin with, because again, I'm not really into opening and buying like an obscene amount of like booster packs and stuff. So this kind of changes up limited a little bit, and I think makes constructed, at least making constructed a little bit better at the cost of making limited a little worse. Of course, there's going to be times where people like open, their 3 packs or whatever, and there's like 4 rares in the pack. And then you're basically deciding like which one's the best one, or if like there's any sealed events and stuff that go on. You have someone that opens up like 11, 12 rares in like their 6 booster packs. Like they just end up getting like 2 rares per pack essentially, versus someone who might just be unlucky and only get like 6 rares and stuff. That's kind of like the nature of like limited anyway. Some people get insane pools, some people don't. But I definitely think like the higher ceiling of just like having some pretty insane draft decks, and definitely some little lower lows, with that gap just being a lot bigger, going forward for at least a sealed standpoint. Draft is going to be a little rough because I mean, yeah, you could pass like a bunch of rares, to the other drafters at the table. I could definitely see getting like a 4 rare pack that's like pretty diverse, and maybe you being able to get like one of those rares back, and kind of make your money's worth, I guess, of it. But this is kind of like the compromise to make it so we have a draft format still, while also getting boosters to the players and stuff that just want to open them up and see what they pull, which again is fine. I mean, I'm not condemning anybody who wants to play Magic and open up packs or whatever. I mean, because it is a lot of fun, from time to time, and really with all the potential to open up multiple rares in a pack, where like a box, instead of getting like 36 rares, and then like you open up like a foil rare, maybe you open up a second one, what have you, in previous booster boxes, where it's like now you could probably get up towards of like 40 to 50, like 50 being like on the pretty insane side. I would imagine like even 40 to 45 being like very good, but that just gets more rares into like the card pool, the more potential to have other rares and mythics, like another card pool, make prices cheaper of cards, singles on like the market and stuff. Just really, I think like impacting limited, exactly the magnitude. Of course, like we won't know until that we actually get our hands on it, and we are actually able to see how these play out in like a draft and stuff. But I could definitely see some like more insane like limited like piles and stuff, kind of like going forward with this change. So of course, like so that's kind of like my thoughts on it, and kind of explaining like the best that I understand. Let's go ahead and jump over to Mark Rosewater's article and kind of look at some of like the points and stuff that he makes like in his article. So let's go jump over and take a look. So here we are at the article in god awful light mode, and I cannot be bothered to change it, so let's just power through this. What are play boosters? So at the start of the article, the set booster and draft booster are being combined into a new type of booster we're calling the play booster. In this article, I'll explain what is happening and walk through what the new play booster will include, and share details in the introduction into Magic. So we kind of went over that in like the kind of the prelude to this. Essentially like the set booster and draft booster were 2 different boosters. Again, like what exactly is the difference? I could pitch an idea, but by and large, the 2 different boosters were meant for something different, and quite frankly, like I didn't like if I bought any boosters from this time, like I really didn't necessarily care where they came from, and I really don't think even at times that store, people were like running the store, like the casual, worker probably didn't either. So All right. How did the Play Boosters come about? The story goes back to 2018. Studio X, what we call the part of the company responsible for tabletop Magic, crunches a lot of data about the players and what they enjoy about Magic and what doesn't work for them. Occasionally, we find a piece of data that causes us to rethink how we make Magic. This time, the piece of data was the following: the majority of the players who open a booster do not play a limited format with it, draft or sealed, which really shouldn't be surprising because I think as much as like my channel is a meant towards like the competitive player and, playing Magic, at a little bit higher of a level, like on average, and like playing around like some better players. Not saying that like casual players can't be good, but, normally people that are going to tournaments are, playtesting, practicing, things like that, at least like I would say more often than not they are. So, in that respect. I mean, like casual players definitely make up the majority of like the player base, and casual being, people that maybe just like go to FNM, play Commander, or like they like maybe have like a deck for like a constructed format like Standard, Modern, Pioneer, so on, but they really don't play it, and they don't like keep up on the format, and they just kind of, things like that, just casual players definitely make up a huge part of like the player base and stuff. So it makes sense that they don't necessarily like play draft or sealed. Again, that doesn't mean that, if you are a casual player, you are unable to play draft or don't want to play draft. I would just think that in general, you know, casual players, like, they want to open booster packs, they want to get a card for their deck, and they end up putting it in rather than worry about getting threes and four ofs and maybe like optimizing and creating like, the best deck they could possibly make for the formats they play. They just want to play the cards that they find fun, which is, inherently something that, I think Magic players like anyway. I mean, I even myself, I play with some really bad cards just because I really love playing with them. Anyway, so, we thought, might there be a different kind of booster that was more fun to open if we weren't restricted by the needs of limited play? Which is kind of interesting because I don't think, I mean, because like opening a booster is fun, period. I'm sure it's a lot more fun when you open up a pack and you have like multiple rares in it, where you feel like, oh, I got a foiled rare in my pack. I feel like I got a little bit more bang for my buck. And I think that's just kind of where a lot of this seems to be trending towards, is just like, I want more bang for my buck, which is why we see more card styles, why we see, we obviously have the collector booster, which is super expensive, but you get a lot of cool looking cards. And even if, you're a casual and you don't open up the big money chase card from the set, you don't open up an Uro from Theros Beyond Death, or I guess even now like a Nyx Lotus or what have you. Uh, or no, that's not even from that set. Either way, like opening up like some of these newer sets and getting like some of the chase cards from it, you still feel pretty, happy with what you got because the cards look cool. And some of them just do really cool things. They just might not be like necessarily, constructed all stars, or see very limited play. So the question led to the creation of the set booster. It came out in Zendikar Rising. Shortly before it premiered, I wrote an article introducing all of you to it, and it was what had been the default booster was then renamed the draft booster. Again, makes sense. A quick aside, there's also the collector booster. Players who buy collector boosters enjoy them, and we have no plans to change anything as well. Anything about them. Well, big picture, they're customized to fit the set they go with, so they do evolve over time, which I don't think anyone was actually questioning that like the collector booster was going to go anywhere, because obviously the collector booster, it's not just, a booster pack where like as more sets get introduced, like, like from Throne of from Eldraine forward, like the original Eldraine set, and through now, like you would just buy collector booster and you would have cards from the Eldraine set all the way up to now. I definitely don't think that was ever called into question. The conversation today is about set boosters and draft boosters, and for the rest of the article, I'm not going to talk about collector's boosters, but we haven't forgotten about them. There's just not much to say, and nothing major is changing about them, and they make a ton of money. So, of course, why would you change anything that is just making a ton of money? Makes sense. Set boosters were a wild success. Players enjoyed the opportunity to get multiple rares and having a guaranteed foil slot, having an opportunity to open a card from the list, getting an art card, etc., which is kind of like what we outlined. Players just like opening up cool looking cards, if their whole point is to just open up boosters. Obviously, too, there's people that buy like booster packs because like they need a common or an uncommon, and maybe a store doesn't have it, but they have like boosters from the set. But like, really, from a casual standpoint, you're buying like boosters because you just want to open up cards, and if they look cool, they do cool things, etc., whatever. The more opportunities for that, you are happy that you open a booster pack, and you are more likely to buy another booster pack. Again, sort of makes sense. So the audience, a booster was a lot more fun to open, and the audience clearly voiced they prefer to purchase that. So much that that it started causing problems, which I'll now walk through. So set boosters eclipsed draft boosters. Well, yeah, like I think once people kind of understood like the difference, it's like you just give them essentially more bang, the potential bang for your buck for a set booster over a draft booster. I even think that like set boosters and draft boosters were like priced the same. So it's like if I'm not drafting, why would I buy a draft booster? Like I'm actively losing money because I bought a draft booster rather than like a set booster, you know. And again, like in case for me, like I don't necessarily care, but you know, if you're trying to build up a collection, you're trying to, you know, get into like playing and stuff and want to open cooler cards, like yeah, like a set booster is essentially a slam dunk. Set boosters became the top choice for players, and I should stress not by a little bit, but significantly. You know, again, probably due to the fact that you know most people, especially during like pandemic era and things like that, like people just wanted to open cool cards. They wanted to look at cool cards. Honestly, it makes for very cool content when you know you're opening up 2, 3 rares in a pack and you're getting different borders and card styles and stuff, versus opening a draft booster, which is meant for playing in a limited format. So basically, I believe in this one. It goes over like a little marketing stuff. So for example, if a store only had set boosters in stock, they couldn't run drafts. Some of our smaller markets don't have the option of printing 2 different boosters, so they pick one because set boosters sold better. They chose them, which you know again makes sense. This meant though no drafts or games of sealed could be played in those markets. Many players have tried to use set boosters for limited play, with it being their only option because they're not designed for limited. The results is definitely substandard limited play because when you add more rares and stuff like that to the pool and the more potential for you know crazy things to like happen in these formats, I think they become less desirable because you have an overall like better chance of like having a like the person that opens an insane pool or drafts an insane deck is like, yeah, I'm gonna keep jamming this because like for one, I'm gonna put money into this. I'm gonna get my money back from like the cards and stuff that I open. And on top of that, like if I'm just gonna beat up on nerds all day, like I'm gonna get my money. I'm gonna make money, you know, however maybe in like a small amount to then just kind of keep rolling it over and keep doing the same thing, you know, or at least have the potential to do the same thing. Where if you go and you get dumpstered and like even like your pool, like your cards that you pull are you know, sub good, suboptimal, what have you, you know, you're probably not very likely to play it again. So just, I mean, I think some like obvious things that like kind of get stated, but you know, we kind of know why if you like dig past the surface. It causes inventory problems. Through this part, it basically says that like you know people buy product A and they sell all of product A so they can buy more product B and they just so on. Like this the cycle of like you get product, you sell product, you buy more product, you sell more product, and so on. And basically causing inventory issues because people would buy both sets of boosters. They'd sell out of one, not the other. Means that they wouldn't be able to buy as much of the other one, and so on. Sales suffer. So once upon a time, a store just had one booster to buy for a Magic set, and so that's what you bought. Now with every set release, the set boosters, draft boosters, you also have the collector's boosters and stuff. You have all these other different products and stuff that are coming in on a monthly basis. I think it is like known but not said. You know, where there was like a set release, like you know, every month became like a lot, and then before that, you would get like a standard set. You know, every few months you really wouldn't see or hear anything about it until like a few weeks maybe, or like maybe even like a little like small spoiler or something, you know, a month before the set was supposed to come out, but like you really wouldn't hear anything about it, so you had time to kind of enjoy the set as it was released and see how standard plays out and stuff like that. Where now you have so much product coming in and out, you know, you have like a set of commander decks with every set that comes out, and then you have Universes Beyond, which also creates more you know commander decks and stuff that comes out. You have you know Modern Horizons that comes out. You have like these other like supplemental products as well that are like in for like are set. They're supposed to be drafted, played, whatever, you know, and you know it's just like every month there's something going on, which is great for the people that like just being involved and like opening product or maybe buy like a few boosts of whatever. But you know for you know competitive players and things like that, it kind of gets to be a headache and a nightmare, especially when you have to sift through you know a decent amount of like garbage to you know get to like the sets that you care about, find the cards that you care about, and so on. So that's kind of like the second problem. It began the abandonment of draft boosters, which I think, again, when stores aren't selling product, why am I going to keep it? If I'm a store and, Magic doesn't sell, but like Pokemon does, why am I going to keep Magic in? I'm just going to make room for more Pokemon and stuff. I'm going to try to like liquidate my Magic stuff. I'm going to sell more Pokemon stuff. So obviously draft boosters, like at some point when draft boosters are not being sold or your store doesn't run drafts, from either people not supporting it, et cetera, so on, we obviously are not going to supply the boosters that aren't selling. So then you're just going to kind of like cut your losses on one end and just take the product that is going to sell. You're a store. You want to create that kind of community where like you can have people come in, play whatever formats they want and support them. But at the end of the day, you still have to make money. You got to keep the lights on. So it makes sense why there would be an abandonment of like draft boosters and a hurt to like a limited play, at least in the physical aspect. Causes confusion in the marketplace. I mentioned that in like kind of the prelude to this, like what's the difference? I can definitely, surmise that there's a difference between a set booster and a draft booster. I can imagine that like a set booster might have, better cards or like better pull rate, than a set booster or than a draft booster for the fact that, it's meant to be opened up versus like meant to be drafted. But in reality, like as far as like just the normal person running the counter at like a game store, or even as the person like buying the product, I could definitely see there being like definitely like I know that I want a set booster, but the person that I'm buying from doesn't know that I want to buy a set booster. And like, sure, you could look at the front of the package, but like really, all the art's the same and stuff like that, or like a few different pieces of art are all the same across like most of them minus the collector booster. So you could definitely run into problems there where you are buying something that you didn't necessarily want, or buying the worst of the two products and stuff if you're just planning on opening and stuff like that. So having two different types of regular boosters meant that we had to communicate twice as much information about each booster putting together and what's in it. For example, there can be cards that appear in one type of booster but not the other. Add in things like variants of cards that get complicated to communicate and understand, which is also a thing where if you just want to open cool looking cards, you have to make sure that you get set boosters rather than draft boosters and stuff. It makes some Magic boosters less desirable. Let's say store's running an event in which the prizes are boosters in the current set. Some of the audience wants the prizes to be set boosters as they plan to open them as soon as possible. Others want them to be draft boosters because they want their prizes to do more drafting. Usually, simplicity of the message for the inventory reasons the store owner wants to go away from one type of booster. The existence of two type of boosters can cause friction. Players can get upset from getting the wrong kind of booster, which is kind of like a weird thing to like get upset about. Like I understand the situation they painted, but go off. Players don't necessarily think of themselves as a set booster player or a draft booster player. They're a Magic player and they want to be happy with every Magic booster they get, whether they buy it themselves, win it as a prize, or get it as a gift. And I think that is kind of this booster, I guess, technically solves an issue, but like you're still causing an issue for like draft players in a way with the fix that has been instituted. So the last problem, every booster buyer wasn't getting all the cool stuff, which explains why now with the boosters you have the potential to get up to 4 rares, and you're guaranteed a foil card in the set, which could be an alternate art card, or a different frame and what have you. So definitely makes sense, because they are also a business. They want to make money. If people aren't like drafting and whatnot, then they don't make money. Stores have a hard time. I think that they definitely make money if you host a draft. In other ways, they don't make money from the product, but Wizards makes money from the product. So obviously, if the store's doing good, Wizards is doing good. Because the set boosters were the more popular item, we decided to approach the problem by figuring out how to make the set booster playable. And here's the major issues we identified. So that's it for the problems. Now we have like the issues. There weren't enough cards. A set booster has 12 playable cards, plus an art card and a token card. A draft booster has 15 playable cards. It makes sense. You have 45 cards that you'll essentially end with in like a draft, typically. Make the booster play for limit. We had to up the total number of playable cards. We combined the art card and a token card in the one slot and add 2 playable cards. The colors weren't balanced. Set boosters first premiere, we did something we called connected cards with commons and uncommons and one portion of the booster had a thematic connection between the individual cards, which is actually just really smart if you're just opening boosters anyway. While it's obviously a bigger hit or miss, like if the cards that you open up connect into like kind of the style of deck that you like playing, then like you just get more cards that you want to be playing with, versus if they're like or in a style that you don't necessarily like, you're less likely to be able to do anything with them. That said, if you're buying like a set booster box of like a set, I can't imagine that is like an issue. Exactly like what amount of players like buy a box of a product versus like a few packs. Obviously we don't know. If you're like a younger child, you're probably just getting a few packs because like your parents are buying you a few packs and stuff like that. So totally makes sense. The connected commons and uncommons have gone away, and part of making the booster playable is including balancing colors to the new play boosters will do that, which again makes sense if you want to kind of combine the best of both worlds of like this product. The ratios of rarities would have to shift. A draft booster typically has 10 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 rare, and mythic rare. These numbers don't include traditional foils, which are in every booster. So boosters have 3 to 6 commons, 3 to 6 uncommons, and 1 to 4 rares and or mythics. This will keep the fun of set boosters. We need some variance in the slots, so we couldn't lock down exactly how many of each rarity and a particular booster would have, but we needed to up the numbers of the commons, so we wanted to keep the likelihood at 1 to 4 rares or mythics, as the number one reason cited is players like set boosters is because they get more than 1 rare. I'll walk through the details as I go through the new play booster. Issue 4, we would have to change how we made sets. And this, possibly being like the big one. So, how we design sets is heavily influenced. It means we package it in boosters. Changing the as fan of rarities, that is, the count of each rarity of a card you'd expect to see in a booster, introducing more variants and slots and adding more outside cards all impact how the set plays and thus requires how we change and build the set. Of all the changes, this is one of the biggest. It requires us to rethink how Magic sets are made. R&D spent a lot of time on this, and I'll get more into the nitty-gritty design structure as we get previews from Murders at Karlov Manor. Now that we've walked through changes, it was specific on what the new play booster will include, which is the graphic that we went over in the beginning. 1 to 6 commons, an uncommon / card out of the list, and a 7 out of 8 times, 12.5% rate, you will get a card from the list. Philosophically, the idea behind the list is a group of cards that chosen to make the booster more exciting by having to be entered into standard. The list has been reprints of older cards. Play boosters are going to tinker with what we exactly be on the list. For example, when play boosters premiere, the list included what we call special guests, 10 cards that were exciting reprints that thematically tie into whatever set we are in, and the special guests will change set to set. Through the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, though the Lost Caverns of Ixalan will not have play boosters, special guests will be debuting in that set, so you should already have some idea of what they will look like. So your likelihood from getting items in the slot in your first play booster, 87.5% of the time it's going to be a common from the main set, 9.38% a common or uncommon normal reprint from the list, 1.5%, oh my goodness, that's hard. A rare, mythic rare, and the normal reprint slot from the list, and then the same rate for a special guest card from the list. So we kind of came to the conclusion that getting a card from like the list at 12.5%, so 1 out of every 8 boosters you open up, this is like your breakdown then on that 1 out of 8 times of getting a card from the list, with being impactful like 1.56%. I'm not even going to bother doing the math because that number is pretty low. I think it's like a 1 in 12 on like the 1 in 8. So I mean, I think it's like 1 in 20 then or something like that. I don't know. Like, I'm a math guy, but I'm not a math guy. All right. So 8-cent uncommons, rare, blah, whatever. We kind of like went over this. So traditional foil wildcard, this is just like the last slot, except that the card is guaranteed to be a traditional foil. So the non-traditional wildcard slot, this is a card that involves anything from the main set. It can be any rarity and has the possibility of being a booster fun variant. Whatever it is, it will be non-foil. Note that the set booster will have 2 non-foiled wildcard slots, and the play booster has 1. So we have a non-foil wildcard slot that could be anything from the main set, any rarity, and being a different variant. So kind of neat. And then the foil wildcard slot is essentially the same thing as that wildcard slot, except it's guaranteed to be foil, and then non-playable being like a token or whatever, which 65% being like a token, like that's pretty sweet though. I really like the art cards with signatures. I have a whole set from MH2 just because a buddy of mine opened up a ton of it, and I bought like the rest of the set. Pretty sweet. So the difference for set boosters overall: 2 playable cards, no connected commons or uncommons, -1 non-foil wild card, and -1 non-playable object. With only a 1 in 3 opportunity of an art card, and the set boosters always had an art card. I wish that it would just be like 65% token card. I wish like an ad card was like essentially super rare. Like I think like tokens, like I just can never have enough tokens or the right tokens for the things that I need, and stores like sell them like pretty expensive, honestly. So when can we expect play boosters? It sounds like their premiere at Murders at Karlov Manor. Will the play boosters make draft less fun? R&D believes it will not, but if, at least from me and my perspective, if you kind of like look at it in a way where you're going to get more rares and stuff in the set, or at least the potential for more rares, like in the pool, like you still like for the most part get to see every card, but it's like it makes certain cards and certain threats in like a sealed pool, like when you're playing, in an 8-person pod, more likely to see them. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed to see them, what have you, but it definitely increases the likelihood. I guess maybe forces you to like play better, or, like play around things, but it also just means like there's times where people are just gonna like pull a card, and like there's a potential for 1 or 2 between like 8 people, and you just have to find a way to potentially beat, the best card in the set like some amount of the time, maybe even multiple times too. Which, how often is it going to happen versus, where like the whole drafting situation is pretty normal. We'll find out, as sets kind of roll out with it. There are only 14 playable cards in the boosters total. Will playing limited cost more? Likely yes. Play boosters match the cost of a set booster, not a draft booster, which result in limited environments going up in cost slightly. However, the expected value of the booster went up as well, so they're justifying like the price of the booster being, the traditional booster being higher because you are getting a higher cost, essentially a return on investment, even though like the secondary market, they really shouldn't give 2 shits about, because what does it matter? Like you could literally put like $100, like short of actually just printing literal $100 bills in a booster. Why do you care? The play is the thing. All I have to say about play boosters for now, anyway, is I'm very eager to hear your feedback on today's column or play boosters, email, stuff like that. All these socials. Next week they'll debut Lost Caverns of Ixalan card previews, which we will also go over on the channel as well. Until then, maybe you'll have fun opening and playing limited with the new play boosters. So that's the end of the article. So we kind of have a better understanding of what the play boosters are going to be, the differences and stuff in the set booster, which is really nice. Overall, I think this is, as I said previously, and I think even after reading this, I feel a lot better, in saying that the players that just like to open booster packs and things like that are, I think are going to enjoy this product less, overall, because obviously there is less opportunity for other cool. I mean, still the same opportunity to open up cool cards, but less at a rate less than previous. And then you have like the players that like wanted to play draft and like try to draft and everything that are kind of going to hate this as well, because of just kind of some of the absurdity that can get created in card pools and stuff, when, going forward and stuff. And I think for like some of the old heads probably take away some of like the skill of like trying to make the most synergistic, deck that you could possibly make in a limited format, while now having to worry about, more rares and stuff circulating the table, which you could potentially benefit from, but, more likely that 7 other people will benefit from it more than you will, just from a pure number standpoint. So yeah, so that's my thoughts, opinions, reviewing everything about the new play boosters coming in the Murders at Karlov Manor set. Hopefully when we get Lost Caverns of Ixalan and Ravnica remastered and stuff, we will, try to get spoilers and stuff on the channel, just fun cards that I, hope that end up seeing play in some of the Eternal formats, and hopefully change the lack of changes that they decided to make. So if you want to see any more of my videos, I have usually a video like at the end of the video and stuff like that. So check them out, check out my channel, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next one.